Hi, and welcome to the Your Good News podcast with me, Katherine Getty. It's easy to believe the news around us that the world is dark and the future is the same. But what if we chose something different? What if we chose to find the good news in each day? This podcast is a collection of interviews with friends, mentors, colleagues on their good news. From business to health to politics and everything in between, it's my hope that you leave with a boost and find your good news. Welcome back to another episode of the Your Good News podcast. It is me, your host, Katherine Getty. It is an honor to have you join for this episode. Pretty excited for this idea. It just kind of came to me and I was like, I'm going to share it and see if it helps others too. So first up, good news for the week. As this episode airs, it is mid-February, the Olympics are airing. And I find such inspiration in watching these athletes achieve their dreams, compete in the Olympics on the world's biggest stage. But even more so, I think about how much work, how much passion, sacrifice, failure goes into that podium moment, or not even just the podium moment, getting to achieve your goal of being at the Olympics. You know, when you see these athletes, what do you see? What stands out in your mind when you think about the Olympics besides the occasional scandal, which, you know, sometimes we got to look for that drama too. Now, on to the message for today. So sometimes I feel like a toddler. That's blunt, but true. Okay, well, let me give you more context because you're probably thinking, what toxic trait is Katherine exhibiting? So drum roll, please. It is patience. See the toddler reference from above? So maybe it's not exactly a toxic trait, but it's definitely something I am exploring as of late and trying to find a better path forward. I've talked about the speed at which this world moves, and I think sometimes that it gets ingrained in us. I know it gets ingrained in me, and that I buy that idea that if it hasn't happened now, maybe it's not going to happen. And I think when I think of I want it now, I'm getting like, Veruca a la Willy Wonka vibe. So I'm not that bad, but I know that I need to be more patient with myself, mostly when it comes to achieving a goal. That's kind of what this whole episode is about, is finding that patience. And I think it can show up in a variety of ways. It can be, achieving a goal, or it can be driving in your city. See, Maryland drivers. No hate, no shade. But I think that in the last few years, patience as a collective has been tested. I think it's only natural because it's become so uncertain. I think the unprecedented has become the precedented. And what I offer up is taking a moment to shift that perspective. And I know that when I do that and I take a moment, take a deep breath, I can find a more patient attitude. I know it's simple, but sometimes that simple reminder unlocks a big change, or it unlocks a small shift. And those small shifts add up. I think that it's not always the easiest. And I think, like I said, I have to take a couple deep breaths, or I need to write down my goal, or I need to break it apart into smaller pieces. But I don't want to buy the narrative that if it isn't happening now, it isn't going to happen. Or if I have a success, that's the end of the road. I'm going to keep showing up each day. I'm going to keep showing up each moment, trying to grow, trying to challenge myself, trying to have a little fun in this thing called life, and trying to find new understanding for myself and others. So what do you think? Patience shows up for each of us differently. So do you struggle with this too? I'd love to know. I'd love to know if you have any other tips or tricks too. Follow me on Instagram at Katherine Getty for more content on this topic. And thank you so much for joining this episode of the Your Good News podcast. If you liked, please share, subscribe, leave a review. And as always, join us next week for another episode of the Your Good News podcast.